constant source of inspiration for all of us. With this beautiful thought, a very warm welcome and a very good afternoon to all of you. A special mention to our panelists, to our business leaders and students to be on the stage today on the Regional Conference 2026, specifically related to animation, visual effects, gaming, comics, and extended reality. The animation, visual effects, gaming, comics, and extended reality is rapidly emerging as one of the most growing segments of the digital economy. The conversion of creative industries with advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, visual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality is transforming the way we are seeing the content, creating the content, and consuming the content. Now, with this thought, we have a proposed panel discussion which aims to create awareness, facilitate stakeholder opportunities, and explore opportunities. Let me take an opportunity to introduce our panelists with all of you. We have Mr. Aditya Subramaniam. He is the game developer, formerly Rockstar Games. He brings a hands-on view of game engineering and what it takes to take a project from prototype to a finished shippable title. Please give him a round of applause. Next, we have Mr. Vikram, independent game designer and visiting faculty, Ecole Intuit Lab. His work sits across game design and teaching, connecting studio practice with how new designers are trained. Please welcome Mr. Vikram with a round of applause. We have Mr. Mridul Pancholi, indie game developer and artist, co-founder of VAG. He works across art and design and is active in India's indie community mentoring at game jams. Please welcome Mr. Mridul with a round of applause. And to moderate the session, we have Mr. Vignesh Raghuram, editor, Outlook Respawn. He is one of the more established names in Indian gaming and sports journalism, having spent a decade covering the field. Over to you, sir. Please welcome Mr. Jignesh with a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. Uh, so, the central government views the AVGC sector as a strategic driver of growth for India's orange economy. And it's also being considered as a massive source for future ready jobs. This panel brings together three people doing that work to talk about how Indian games get made, what the talent pipeline needs, and what a state like Gujarat could do to back the sector. So I want to begin with asking each of our panelists, what are you building right now, and why choose this field compared to a more traditional field like an IT service job?
Wow. Okay, what a khatarnak question to start with. Okay, so I'm actually working on after being a salaried employee for 13 years, over the last 12 months, I've decided to go independent. I've gone back to teaching a lot, as my introduction said. So I'm teaching game design primarily and some communication design as well. I'm working on two personal projects that I hope to take to market sometime either this year or early next year. But the reason I'm doing this is because one, the industry has fundamentally changed in the last few years, especially after COVID. Two, I'm really interested in knowing where this industry is going. And maybe most importantly, by 2030, the first generation of Indian students or Indian children who grew up post 2007, i.e. in a completely digital India, will enter that 18 to 24 adult age range by the end of this decade. That's 200 million new Indian adults who would have grown up in a completely digital India. So that means by the end of this decade, I have no idea where the digital AVG, and not just gaming, but any creative and technical industry will be by the end of this decade. And frankly, I want to be there. I want to be part of that story. And I want to see what I can do in the next 5 years as it happens. Thank you.
Hello, guys. It's not working. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I am an independent game developer. I've been making games since I was 10. I'm 25 right now. We have been funded by Xbox, Microsoft Currently, we are working on a game called Appa. It's a narrative-driven surreal card game, and yeah, like the reason that I am in this industry as opposed to anything else right now, and why I think gaming as an industry will be booming in the next couple of decades, is because right now India is going through that change where like finally the people, there is a demand of people who, there is a demand of indie game developers and game developers in general to get to release games that are based on India. And I'm sure that you guys have seen games that are coming out of India, that might come out of India in the next few years. So yeah, like I think this industry is very promising, and like I'm glad to be part of it. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Aditya, and I have been doing experimenting with game development since my high school, which is at this point since 2008, 9. And like what I've seen after working with Monolith and Rockstar and seeing their pipeline and production as well, and also seeing since COVID as well, whatever Mridul and Vikram have also mentioned, that there are new independent games that are coming out from Indian spectrum as well. And the thing is, there's another section from AVGC that is also that I'm looking into, which is not exactly tied with comics, but board games, right? And so I am someone who likes to rescale and experiment with a lot of things, and be it board games, be it video games, be it any part of the aspects of the industry. And the idea is that I'm helping out with studios, different studios, volunteer or otherwise. And the main goal is that spreading awareness. And we'll see how we'll do that with this session as well.
So, you know, a lot of all three of you, in fact, have built your own games, right? But the prevailing sentiment or the prevailing market condition in India is like India is a services, primarily a services sector for the gaming industry. Why did you choose to build your own games rather than take that traditional route? And was that the right call looking back?
I'll go. Go ahead. So important on that. So as I said, like I've been focused in game development since childhood, same as Mridul, or I'm sure like whenever Vikram changed as well in between towards that direction. So the thing is, yes, game development is seen or globally like advertised as hard, or maybe at some points games as a aspect is shown as not as relevant and stuff. But if you see the current scale and situation with the industry, everything is moving and shifting, be it IT, be it any field, everything is gone haywire. And like you'll see that any one of us in this field, we are all passionate people, and the consistency matters a lot. And I'll let Mridul and Mridul go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that right now this is considered a safer path for me because and I think like I'll explain why that like me being there is like specific to that is because I deeply love the art of making games. And I think because of and 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 right now basically the every as he mentioned, because of AI and all these disruptions, the older industries have been like are in this chaotic state where we don't know like how where they will end up. We don't know what jobs will be lost because of AI and everything. So I think I am personally betting on, and I think the people that I work with, that are my colleagues and peers, the people who are able to be passionate about this, I think in the longer run, this is the safer path because, as I mentioned before, there is a demand of people from, there is a demand of Indian game developers, and there are not many game developers relatively as compared to every other industry, which are competent enough. So I think in the coming decades, as the industry booms, this will like this the consistency that my passion grants me will be rewarded in that sense. Yeah.
I'm actually a little jealous of Aditya and Mridul because they chose to go independent. Mridul right from the age of 10, and Aditya did it many years earlier. So I actually come from what Vignesh said in the question, services. I was a salaried employee in Indian studios for 13 years. And I'll give you a very simple example. Literally on the second day of my career in this industry, 13 and a half years ago, I had this wonderful project manager, her name was Neha Bansal, in fact. And she was used to be an engineer, became a project manager, and she put this proposal from a client on my desk. And she said, Vikram, analyze this and tell me what we have to make. And it's an RFP, and I'm 2 days old in this industry, and I have no idea what an RFP is. But that first week in my industry, I learned what an RFP is. I wonder what a proposal is, how to make a pitch deck. All of these things now, I can literally go to an AI and do it in 30 seconds. And that's terrifying to me because why should someone hire me to do this job if I am a fresher, like I was in this industry 13 and a half years ago, when that same person who's hired me can literally just open any AI and do that same job for them in less than 5 minutes? That is an absolutely terrifying thing to me. So the critical, technical, soft skills, hard skills that I learned in the first 2, 3 years in the industry, I had to do how to write documents, how to write asset lists, how to budget, how to scope, how to talk to clients, how to write an email to a client, how to tell my boss I screwed up without telling them I screwed up, right? So learning how to do all these things, I learned in the first 2 to 3 years. And these kind of opportunities will not exist in the vast majority of studios over the next few years. Yes, it's going to take us a long time to figure out not just AI, but many, and I truly believe AI is actually not what's driving this chaos. AI is just a symptom of it. There are other things as well, but that's a different conversation. But the point is, the reason ultimately I have now chosen to go independent after 13 years is because I didn't realize what was happening in my industry. I got to know Mridul in the last year. I got to know Aditya in the last year, what they're doing. I'm talking to other people in the industry, and there are some incredibly beautiful, wonderful things happening in this industry, and I'm glad I found it before it was too late. And I want to make my own things. I want to write my own stories. I want to make my own gameplay. And I want to be part of the story that tells, whether it's a local audience or a global audience, what Indian game development is. I want to be part of that story, and I'm glad I've done it. And I'm discovering it as much as the two of them are.
Yeah. So Vikram, you did mention that you worked in the services industry and, now we are in the game. What if it was the other way around, right? Say someone who works in the gaming industry, what sort of skills are transferable if someone wants to pivot into a more traditional kind of a job?
Okay, so one of that's by the way, that's a fantastic question. This is critical because someone who wants to be into the game industry, come into the games industry or go out, this is something that does not get talked about enough. Games industry is right now, games is one of the few industries where we need people with video skills, art skills, camera skills, programming skills, writing skill, design skills, any kind of technical creative skill that you have, we desperately need it in the game industry. I started as a 3D animator, right? Aditya started as a programmer, but now he does music also. Mridul does art, music, animation, programming. Mridul scares the crap out of me. I can't do half the things he does. But the point is, games has very strong transferable skills. You can take design, art, technical music skills to related industries. We also desperately want people from music. We want sound designers. We want music people. We want people from art and design and advertising, and we desperately want marketing experts to come in the games industry because the games industry sucks at marketing. We're awful at it, crap at it, right? We have deeply transferable skills that you can take to other industries, and anything that expertise that you can bring in, we can use it. Games are a very, 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 very flexible medium, and we have one of the critical advantage games has is we are applicable on many devices, not just phones and tablets, consoles, PCs, TVs, VR devices. We are a device agnostic industry and we can be anywhere. So yeah, we please, if you believe you have non-gaming skills, that's not true. Trust me, we can use your skills.
So when I started making games, I was doing the programming. Like I started as a programmer, and then because there was no one to make art for the games that I was making, no one to make the sounds for the games that I was making. So I had to learn all those skills, and eventually, the art and animation skills that I developed, that became that is what I earned with for the last 5 to 6 years. And that was only because there was no one to help me out with the art and animation for the games that I was making of my own. So these, and then eventually, right now I'm running a business, I have a studio now. All the skills, all the collaborations that I've done with the people that I've worked with, those communication and leadership and management skills, those have been easily like that can be easily transferable in any other company, right? Or any other job like position. Like those are some things that like now helping me out make this thing, make my own studio basically. So yeah, like I think games are an amalgamation of all the technology and all the arts, and that covers a lot of the subjects that like humans study, right? And so yeah, like as he said, like if you think that you don't have if you think you don't have any gaming skills, you're probably wrong about that, and you can make a game out of whatever passion you have. So, I mean, if you are part of that scene, you will know that people make games about almost everything: history, culture, religion, everything. So, yeah.
I'll add and continue to the hobby part that he just mentioned. Whenever I talk to anyone, generally speaking, my first query is usually not where you work, it's what's your hobbies. And this is something that I've seen and observed with myself and then with other people, like in the sense, like, let's say uh, you want to make a game about hiking. People go for walks, go for hiking. There are games about hiking. If you want to make a game about mental awareness, there are games about mental awareness. If you want to make a game about just studies or historical aspects, there are so many games that we have played tied with historical architectures and other aspects there. Oh, even architecture. Like anyone from any field can easily switch into and go out from game development because of the amount of passionate research that we end up doing. Like as he said, switching around from programming to art. Like I myself have written and published a short stories book or like write universes and aspects towards that direction to see, okay, board games, video games. It can even be films. Like I've also worked with a short film. Like I'm sure Mridul has also worked on films as well. And the thing is, it's transferable. And for that, you don't need to look into it from like, oh, this is something like too problematic for me, or oh, what if you're an artist and you're like, oh, I don't know how to program and how to do it. There are ways to do it. You'll have to like the way we explored back then, there was not as much resource that we had even. Like I had to figure out on my own, search on my own and figure out, oh, this is the school or this is the aspects, this is what students are making around the world, explore how they were made, and then go about it. But yeah.
One last point, just to give you a very practical example, in addition to what Mridul and Aditya said about their skills in other fields. My game design skills has given me a second and adjacent career in teaching. I also teach communication design because a lot of communication design, interaction design is deeply related to game design. So all three of us are literally living examples, practical, current day examples of transferable skills from games to other industries and back again. So very, very transferable skills in the industry, both in and out.
Yeah. So I'll just add something onto that. The person that one of my teammates that I'm working with right now, he he has actually worked as a game designer in like for NGOs to design games which basically teach people below poverty line how to manage their finances. Now, these are the people that don't know how to read and write. And but through the medium of games, he was able to teach something so important that these people desperately need to learn. So I think you can understand like this is sort of tangential, but you can sort of understand that how these skills are transferable, and how if you are into games, your career opportunities are like exponential, if you are a competent game developer or in any job position relating to the games industry.
Right. Now, you did mention competent game developer. Now, Vikram, how does one become a competent game developer? How does one enter the industry?
I'll actually tell you what I do with my students in my class. The very first thing I do with any student I have who says, "How do I make a game?" I make them sit down, I get them to make a game, and then I go, "Congrats, you're a game designer." I'm assuming you've all played Monopoly growing up, right? Or some board game at home, Monopoly, chess, whatever it is. Here's a very, very simple thing you can do to know if you enjoy making games or not. Whatever board game you have in your house, घर जाके उसका एक rule change करो, play the game with that rule change and see if it's interesting to you. If it's interesting to you, congrats, you're a game designer, you succeeded because you made something new with that already existed. That's all you have to do to start becoming a game designer or a game dev. Take one game in your life, change one rule, try playing it with that rule change. Is it fun? No, it's not fun. Change some other rule, try again. Keep trying till you make it fun to you. That's all you have to do. We've all been making games and playing since we were little kids. We do it as adults. We all have different things that we play with in our lives. This is all you have to do to start thinking about how to make interesting, playable, fun games. That's all you have to do to design. Change one rule, try again. That's it. Knots and crosses, change a rule, try again. That's it. That's all you have to do. But that's where you start.
Yeah.
You need to sit down and learn that how do I make something that I want to play? That's the starting point.
And to add to that, like you will be surprised if you follow the path of like being a game designer, how much that principle and that technique applies to the current paradigm. Like if you are a gamer, you must have seen the same like games of the same kind, but with like slightly different things. And those people are like professionals that are getting paid like millions, that are like doing the same thing, but like what he said, just changing a couple of rules. It requires a lot of creative thinking and discipline and experience to know what rules to change to make things interesting. But that is the base of it. That is the core principle. uh, I think I would like to introduce to you guys the idea of a game jam, which is very important if you want to get into games. A game jam is basically like, so do you guys develop, like, do you guys code? So basically, you guys will be aware of this idea of hackathon, right? Yeah. So game jam is basically the game's equivalent of a hackathon, in which you have 48 hours and you are given a theme and you have to basically make a game about that. Now, what I personally like, and I'm a huge proponent of it, about game jams, is that it is sort of like a microcosm of what goes on when you try to make a game. And it has very, very important differences than when you try to make an app. And those differences are like are only experienced once you actually make a game. That's something that like I think people who are going to invest into games, the government that like the government bodies that will be working with the game developers will need to understand. So I think game jams. So like I take part in like an yearly game jam as a tradition, like BYOG. So and that is like one of India's biggest game jams. I think Respawn has also done a lot of game jams. So like I'm from Rajasthan, Jaipur, and we did a game jam a couple of months back, and yeah, that was very fun. Like 200 students showed up and made their first games, and yeah, like, and our hope was a few of them, and I think that this will be the case, that a few of them will go on and go home and hopefully look at game development as a career path. Yeah.
Um, in continuation to what both of them are saying, what do you think in a game jam? What are ultimately people doing? They're joining together as a programmer, artist, music, or designer, right? And they, as they spoke about, like let's say 48 hours, 24 hours to make a game. What it helps you is keeping things simple, understanding fallbacks, understanding that okay, what is your limitation, what is a deadline, what can you achieve with okay, these 4 people that I have, what can I make? Because even the concept of simple is something that you'll see while thinking about and researching about is very tough, right? And here's a fun example that went into my head when he said game jam and thinking about stuff. What if the fans were below and rotating here? Make a game about it. How to avoid it? Like it's just on the spot thought process, right? So that's how our thoughts are thinking at all the time, running like our minds are running a race. Is how I would say. But yeah, go ahead.
Uh, no, I think there's a definite gap between a game developer, right? A proper professional game developer and someone who's just passing out of college. What's that gap look like? And how to bridge that gap to become someone who can, be hired by a studio?
Okay, so I'll again bring in some experience from my previous full-time job, my last full-time salaried position. So I was not just the lead designer, but I was also the team lead at a company called 3 Interactive, which is in Dwarka, Delhi. I was also responsible for hiring designers. And one of the realities when interviewing designers is I don't ask about, and Aditya had mentioned this earlier, I don't ask about their background, I don't ask about their qualifications, I don't ask about their educational degree. By the way, this may be hard for some people to understand, and I think for a lot of the students here, this may be hard for your parents to understand. As a teacher, believe me, I speak to many parents, I get it. The games industry does not care about your degree. The games industry cares about your portfolio. By far, the most important thing if you are a fresher or new to the games industry is building a portfolio that allows us to see what skills you have, how you've utilized those skills to make a game. The size of the game doesn't matter. What matters is the quality you've put into it and how you have thought about your process, how you have thought about problem solving, whether it's solving an art problem, whether it's solving a design problem, whether it's solving a programming issue, whether it's solving a graphical issue, it doesn't matter. What we are looking for in the games industry in your portfolio is what you made, how you made it, what tools you did, what problems you solved, what processes you solved. That is the very first thing every single game studio will ask you. They will ask for your portfolio, and many places will ask you to take a test. And they will only ask you to take a design test or a programming test or an art test after they have seen your portfolio. And the reason the games industry cares about your portfolio first is very simple. This is a very technically heavy craft driven industry. Even at a fresher level, we need to see what your current level of craft in your chosen area or position or expertise is. So we can decide, yes, this person already has some level of expertise in their craft. Let's give them a chance. We want to see the quality of your work. We want to see how well you did it and what you did in it and why. Justify your choices. Tell us about your process and justify your process.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna expand on that game jam concept a bit and how my personal experience have been on like breaking into the games industry, I guess you can call it that. So basically, I have been part of game jams where I have earned prizes, and I have went on to make those game jams actual games that have then got an investment from investors, and now they are in development to like be released for like to a global audience. So, and before all this, I did not know anything about like games. So I went on YouTube and I found out how to like make the simplest of games. Then I made them and I shipped them. And I did them in 2 days or 3 days in a game jam. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And eventually I started to develop my own taste on like what kind of games that I like to make. Not just the games that I like to play, but the games that I like to make. Right. And eventually, after a couple of years of doing this, I was able to secure funding. I was able to win prizes, and then eventually that led to where I am today, where I have my own studio and like 6 people, 6 to 7 people that are working with me on the games that I'm making, and yeah. So like I think if you want to break into the games industry, and if you are a student, and if you know how to program in any language, I would really like I would really like just implore you, I guess, so to just like go home and see if you can take part in a game jam. So I think you can look at BYOG, which is Bring Your Own Game Jam, which is a game jam that which is the biggest game jam that happens in India, and you can win like prizes and all that. But yeah, the making of the game is the main thing there. Learning it. Yeah.
Aditya, I want to ask you, since again you've been part of studios, what is the hardest role to hire for in India today in game development?
I think generally speaking, that terminology hard can keep changing, but and it differs for each of us, definitely. But I would say as like we generally see, okay, engineering as an aspect, art as an aspect, uh, music as an aspect that exists. But we see that design is something that goes haywire and vague in all directions. And this is something that people generally like are unaware of what design does, especially in game development, because it's literally the key that's holding programming and art. Uh, if you see, even from your student life, college life, whatever it be, if I am doing getting into programming or the sciences, or I am like the other person is going into art and discussions, we will have so vehemently strong different opinions, right? And what is the one that's bridging us? The person who's understanding what is the requirement from both sides and what can be feasibly done. And that is something generally that's we should be looking into more.
So I have a question for you, like, and we'll come back to this point, but I would like to ask you, like, how can a student get hired at like Rockstar? You know, because
I
people
will.
would be interested in that. Yeah,
I
like
don't mind
what
sharing,
would
but
it? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I was going to share that with the previous this thing, but so even before I joined Rockstar, and like I worked at Monolith, and that also is a very high level studio for game development, and it's sought after. And I was fortunate to work, to study in a college side with game development, and the main thing that we did was make a lot of portfolios and lot of games. Like within 2 years of my masters, we made like 4 or 5 games end to end, and our college was in a way where if we don't have it ready and finished and working in clean machines, we will not be graded. We had a huge Excel sheet of grading to make sure that you are understanding what you're doing. Now, from the uh, getting a job perspective, I literally poached my manager for over a year that I want to get into Monolith. I was after him for a year, every 2, 3 months, like be shameless. Like every 2, 3 months, be like, hey, I'm doing this. I made this cool thing. Can you have a look at it? Do you have an opportunity? Keep doing it. You know what my manager said at the very end before like letting me get in? Make a website with all the stuff that you have done. We don't care about, like, I'm not going to give you the thing, go ahead, unless with just a resume and a degree or whatnot. Make a website within the weekend and then we'll talk. And that's how I actually got into Monolith. And the first thing that we did, even while working there, I asked people, like, this is something that is that we don't come across, is management of people as well, communication and management in working at Rockstar or Monolith. It's independent. So when I went for the first day at job, I was like, what should I do? What do I work on? And they're like, oh, you have these assigned bugs. Like, I just asked one of the senior programmers, and they're like, you have these assigned bugs, go through them. If you find more bugs, put it up on your own, like assign them, work on them. If you get finished with bugs, and if you have nothing else to do, figure out on your own. I was thrown into the deep end, and that's how I figured out how to communicate or how to talk to people. Like, and that is very, very important. And that's how I also, when I applied to Rockstar, I never really thought that I wasn't thinking from the perspective of, oh, if I'll get it or not. For me, honestly speaking, Rockstar was a stepping stone. And I am fortunate and grateful for it. And all because of the communication and all the portfolio and the stuff I've done. Even till date, I would say, both my managers at Rockstar and Monolith always care about what are you doing right now when you are not working your job.
So one, and I'm actually really glad both of them said these things. The two common themes between what all three of us are saying, and I want all of you to focus on this, especially those of you young in this industry or are looking to get into this industry. The one most important common theme here that the three of us are talking about is keep making games. Don't stop. Make a game. It doesn't matter if it's a small game, big game. Your game has to have a start, a middle, an end. It must have a full gameplay loop, and it should be interesting to at least one other person than you. You are not the judge of your own game. At least one other person of your game has to say, this is fun to play. That's the only way you know if you've made an interesting game. And the second thing is not only just to keep making games, I really like what he said, be shameless. Put it on your website and said, I made this. Someone out there will look at your game on your portfolio. Even if you think it's a crap game, it doesn't matter. It is proof that you spent time making something. You tried an idea, you tried a thought, you tried a theme, and you put it in public on your portfolio for people to see. Games can only be verified when someone else plays them. That means you need a portfolio and you have to keep making games because games are project specific or game specific. So the more games you make, the more different ideas and games you make, the more you learn about how lots of different games are made. Keep making games.
You know, isn't game jams one of the best ways to do the keep doing that? Just a side note, right? Because you have this theme given to you, and it's you treat it as a prompt, right? And how you interpret it is, no, I'm just fascinated by the concept of game jams. Apologies for taking that side track. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So you did mention the roles hardest to try for, right? I mean, hardest to hire for. Now, how can a state like Gujarat train for them? Like train their students, train their potential game developers for it.
Okay, this is this is a very large, complex question. So I'll start this at a policy level. So one of the good things that's happening in India right now is that the central government, the union government, has actually released a draft policy for the AVGC sector. So there is already a draft policy. It's not law yet, it's not regulatory yet, but they've released a draft policy and they've essentially told all state governments, here is a draft model. And obviously, we want you to look at it, make your own specifications and changes for your local ecosystems, your local policies, your local laws, your local regulations. So 4 states have already announced it. 4 more states are in the process of announcing their version of the same central policy. Gujarat has not yet announced it, but one of the first things they can do is look at what the draft policy the central government has offered. That's one. 2, and maybe arguably, or maybe one of the, not maybe, maybe the most important, probably the most important thing in that draft policy is skilling and training and education. And 2 specific things in this policy have been pointed out. One, a strong recommendation to introduce game design, game development at school level, not higher education, school. That is critical because you need when it comes to creative and strongly creative and technical skill sets like game development, needs to be introduced at a very, very young age to see if you have a genuine aptitude and interest in it. So the first recommendation is introduce game design and development electives at school level. The second one, and I'm very happy about this particular one because I teach at higher education level, primarily undergrad, is a recommendation of training and undergrad level training, skilling, and educational policy recommendations at undergraduate level for game design, game programming, game art, both 2D and 3D, game animation. There are two specific things missing that Aditya will talk about in a second because we were going through the policy. But generally, this draft policy by the central government already actually has a very strong list of recommendations, and 4 state governments have already announced it with their own specific changes, and more state governments are in the process of announcing it. So I think Gujarat government's first step has to be, what does the central government recommend? What are the other states doing? What is that we need to do? So at policy level, this is where it has to start.
Definitely one more, like, as Vikram was talking about, there are two things that are something from our observations that are definitely missing or feels missing that Gujarat state government can take advantage of. Where we should be looking into. But yeah.
Yeah, I think also there needs to be from the government side, there needs to be an overhaul of the how games are taught, because the current way of teaching games is basically very archaic. You can't have like a exam paper as a qualifier for like competence as a game developer. So the education system needs to have some reforms in that sector. I think games can only be taught by making them, because they are a craft based thing. You have to go through the experience of making them, and so that's why I think you can talk a lot more about this.
I mean, Vignesh, is that the only question regarding this, or are there actually
No,
more?
I have other
Okay,
questions.
so I think we'll wait till he. Yeah.
No, so the reason why I want to ask this and then move on to why would a government like Gujarat want to do this is, yeah. So I just want to move on to that, right? Why would a government want to do this? What benefits does a government get out of skilling its youth or like potential game developers?
Okay, so I have a couple of specific historical examples here that I think we can look at for both inspiration, but also study from at a policy level as to something that we can take inspiration from for the games industry in India. So a few numbers first. This is very high level. I'm simplifying this conversation because we don't have the time. At a general level, the Indian game industry is valued somewhere between 1.2 to 1.7 billion dollars. So just for the sake of this conversation, we'll leave it at about 1.5 just to simplify numbers. 1.5 is neither here nor there. It's a number. But something that needs to be looked at historically that was tremendously successful is our IT services industry, which got started going in the 80s with NASCOM, and how that industry got off the ground. They did one or two critical things. They recognized one or two critical things in that industry. One was the state and central governments, as that industry was getting off the ground in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, was that it's fundamentally an export industry and it's building for the world and not just locally. So that meant sending our products and revenue coming from abroad. So that meant a lot of dollars. And one of the key tax breaks and the key tax policies for the IT services industry back then, and which lasted for a long time to allow this ecosystem to develop, was tax breaks on profits earned in export income. That is another critical thing that the Gujarat government can potentially look at. There is historical proof here. And it's not just in IT services. The pharmaceutical industry had similar policies from the 1960s and 70s onwards. are low budget models of two-wheeler vehicles. TVS and Bajaj specifically, who've had a tremendously successful impact in taking their pipelines and production processes to other countries. So there are definite other industries that we can look at, that the Gujarat government can look at as what has happened there historically, what is happening now. And because fundamentally video games and digital games and computer games are software, so we have a very critical IT services industry, which is fundamentally a software industry that had critical tax breaks, education breaks, they had upskilling, training. So there are definite historical latitudes, policies that we can look at. And the reason you want to do this is very similar to the games industry. Our IT services industry started tiny, $1 or $2 billion. It is now one of our most critical industries in terms of jobs, salaries. It has been arguably the most essential industry in raising the the average income level of the Indian middle class over the last 2 generations. And games are fundamentally an industry that is capable of the same thing. And there is global proof of this. The games industry globally has now crossed $200 billion. Just to put that into little perspective, that's bigger than music, movies, and television combined. That's how big it is. So there is a lot of potential here to turn games into a massive, and I like what you said earlier, a future-ready jobs industry that can have the potential to hire a lot of young Indians who will be entering the job market over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think another point to that is something that Vignesh and I were discussing before this, is that this example of when this game Ghost of Tsushima was released, and it it was very culturally charged, right?
It's a Japan-based game for
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a Japan-based game, and because of that, the tourism of Japan increased. So I think like when an Indian company successfully makes a game based on our culture, right, and it properly does that, I think we will have like increase in tourism, and that is like one of the very like small side effects of it, which is still like a big thing. Like I think the bigger part is what he's saying of like like games industry generating employment and everything else. Apart from that, I think what's mo- what's also more important is games are an art form. Video games is an art form, right? And and the and what's important about that personally for me is that just like how movies have been adapted by classical movies have been adapted by the books that we have written like thousands of years ago, right? And the movies made the culture more accessible to the newer generation. Video games are that new medium. The stories that our culture has been like that the culture has been the foundational stories of our culture, right? The games are the new medium that hopefully someone will be able to like convert it, and it'll be like it will be culturally enriching to the next generation. Like it's a way to educate the next generation. So like that is also one of the aspects of it. But yeah, like that is like an artistic and a educational and a cultural aspect of it. But yeah, we have talked about the financial ones. Maybe.
Aditya.
There is one more addition. So, you know how Vikram was talking about the IT sector side? And you know what? One of the things that this is, I'm going slightly specific, but with the PC console game development side as well for increasing that, something that generally is lacking is UI side. And guess who does UI very well? All the web developers. There's abundance of web developers in India, and they are crucial for making sure that games have good, outside UI stuff, because and that's an essential aspect that is missed by a lot of games, and that is something that can be also tapped into, utilizing the web developers and combining and joining them to work with game developers to take out stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, if there's any front-end devs in the audience, please, we desperately need you in games. Please, games mein aa jao. Games mein UI बहुत खतरनाक चीज़ है. Please, we desperately need you.
Right. Uh, yeah, I mean, beyond office space and connectivity, what can a government enable for the games industry that would make genuine impact?
Okay, so I've already talked about the tax breaks, but now I'm actually going to bring out those two very dangerous letters, A and I. So AI has had one very specific impact that I think we will not just need state government help, but generally government help in general across the country. The most critical thing impact it has had right now is on hardware in terms of price of memory, price of hard drives, price of RAM, price of SSDs, price of CPUs and GPUs. Because the entire IT industry worldwide, and especially the hardware side of the industry worldwide, have all shifted their production pipelines to AI. So it means the cost of even a basic consumer level laptop and desktop, phone, anything that has a CPU in it that we use at a consumer level, the price of that over the next 2 years is going to go 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, depending on the quality of the model, the budget of the model, the range of the model. It is going to be crippling, especially for studios that are trying to grow or have seen some financial success or critical or cultural success in their games. But as the quality of our games goes up, as the quality of our skill goes up, a critical cost that's going to hit us very, very hard is the cost of hardware, which we make games on. And one fundamental aspect of games that we cannot escape is that every so often, for different studios, there's a different requirement. The bigger the studio, the bigger revenues means that they need to upgrade their hardware more often. That is not a sustainable pipeline. If your memory, your SSD for 1 TB that you bought for 10,000 rupees today is going to cost 30,000, the same one is going to cost 30,000 rupees 6 months from now, just because AI has caused hardware prices to go up. So we will need serious government help to maintain and stabilize and even potentially subsidize some costs.
And could they take the help of some of the existing Gujarat studios, right? I think there are a few, not much, compared to uh, a hub like a Pune or a Bangalore. But what sort of help could the existing studios provide?
So I think that one thing that the state can do is like foster a community of the game developers that are in the in in the state of Gujarat, and like make sure that they are always in touch with each other. So I'll give you like an example of how that is very helpful. So when I was starting out the game, I was like the friends. If you guys have heard of the game Raji, so so these guys are like nodding head the studio, these guys are very good friends of mine, and they have been like very good mentors to me too. And without them, I would not have been able to get the right kind of guidance, or right kind of guidance and connections that I have gotten, which have taken me to the place where I am right now. And I think all the games that we have seen, even the games that are like marketed as games made by just single person, they're never made by a single person. A game is always as a game always comes out of a community, a healthy community which is of game developers which are helping each other out, solving problems. Because video games is a very collaborative medium. It's like films. You can technically make a film by with just one person, but it won't be very interesting. It'll be very hard to make that interesting. It will require like probably like you to be very masterful about it. But but games essentially, and this is coming from a guy who very much likes to do everything solo, games are a very collaborative medium, and so I think government can help in fostering that community. Another thing to add to that will be incubators. But so if we can find, if in that community you can find promising young game developers who have experience of shipping games, whether or not they have failed or not, but just shipping games, the government should be able to provide them with incubators and guidance from industry veterans and professionals so that they can actually go on to become successful game developers, which is like these are the things which are also very non-financial in nature, right? So yeah.
There is one more thing that can be added. Is something tied with, I think we were discussing generally like about it, but media and awareness in general, societal awareness about how games are relevant. Uh, People like generally like a lot of things, even films that are made nowadays, animation films and a lot of other films. The thing that's used in the background is an engine, a game engine, for a lot of them. That's literally what is used for making a lot of animation films, right? Not just that, a lot of games generally, okay, when we talk about games, people think about all the big games that exist, but there are a lot of same, like similar, small, lots of small independent games that are out there in various aspects. So, from a cultural perspective, the one that a lot of independent developers follow is Hades. Like it's made by Supergiant Games, and it's all about the Greek mythology, going into all the aspects of that. And similarly, there are games tied with mental health awareness, tied with schizophrenia. Hellblade goes into that aspect. Ghost of Tsushima was mentioned towards that direction, tied with how Tsushima affected, right? And there are even games that help you. How do I put it? Even just plain old fishing. There are like games of cities, city building,
Yeah.
right? City Skylines helps with that. Microsoft Flight Simulator is literally used by and helpful for pilots. It's all of these are games, and they have existed like some of them like Flight Simulator has existed for a while. And what people forget is how relevant these things are. Like even from a computing perspective, uh, what are the things? Well, some of the earliest games out there that were made in computations, the whole idea was to see how it helps and speeds up things, right? And generally, any of the games that you make, we rely on what microseconds, nanoseconds of development. If anything is slow, it's already like non-existential for us. And that's how games have helped in so many different ways. And this awareness in general, the media awareness is something that can be looked into.
Yeah, and I actually want to add on to both the community and awareness things that there is actually a very specific thing that the suggestion I have that the Gujarat government can potentially do. One is actually just talk to the, and Mridul briefly touched on this, talk to the developers that already exist in the state. And I'll give you a very specific story that happened with me. I had a programmer, someone who called me from Surat, and wanted some feedback on a game he and his studio were working on. And I said, where are you calling from? He said, I'm in studio in Surat. I was like, I didn't even know there were game development studios in Surat. So I actually went researching, and it turns out Surat has suddenly seen a post-COVID has just suddenly seen not an explosion, but there's been a bunch of small game development studios doing services, building their own small casual games, hyper casual games, and a small industry of game development studios has just popped up in Surat over the last few years. I went just researching for this. I had no idea this was happening. And there are a couple of two really well-known game studios in Ahmedabad specifically. One is Masala Games, who are, if you know the indie game space, they're known for a game called Detective Dotson, but they've been in Ahmedabad for a long time. They've been making services and client work for a long time, and now they've started moving into the original IP. And a very, very desi IP, by the way. It's a detective game about a local detective. It's called Detective Dotson. And there's another one called Zotun Games who do a lot of services. What was the studio you mentioned?
So this is more of an artistic studio, Studio Oleomungus.
Oleomungus.
Yeah.
So there is actually already an existing, but small, but existing game development scene happening in Gujarat. It's in Ahmedabad and Surat, as far as I know, based on my research. But one of the very first things that the Gujarat government can do is go and talk to the studios that have managed to build a little bit of an industry here and have managed to function here.
Yeah, by the way, the studio that Mridul just mentioned, they are globally known, not locally known.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's something that you can think of.
Yeah, they are more globally known than locally known, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think to just to build on that, just to make what like I think Aditya was trying to get at is that promoting the local studios is very important because societally we are not very, and that is one of the reason we are here talking about it, is that we are as a culture we are not very used to seeing game development as a career option. And I think it's very important if someone, so like when I was like 10 years back when I was making games, there was no one in the entire like state of Rajasthan that I thought would find it as important as I found making games at that point. But it was important because that the game that I was working on was like we were one of the youngest people from India to release a game on Steam at that point. And we were just 16 years old back then. But like it was, I think me and a couple of, and there were a lot of studios even back then. But the thing was, because there was no cultural importance, like a game developer would not be as respected as someone who, let's say, is an engineer or something like that. uh, it it it's very hard. It's like a struggle to be a game developer. In that sense, it's a cultural struggle. So I think the government can really, if the government can just like have a platform where the upcoming games, the students like that are passionate about it, they can put their game and like get some eyes on it. If the government can do something like that, that will be big. And I think yeah, I think Gujarat can like spearhead this.
I really hope so too. I want to open up the floor for questions from the audience. Feel free to.
Yeah, can we get a mic for someone or should I? Okay. Aditya, we'll take turns doing this, otherwise you'll run around.
I'm Shashank. It's so wonderful to see young professionals out here sitting in the panel. Congratulations, and you deservedly
Thank you.
need all of them. This is a layman's question, somebody who doesn't game. In the advances that you've seen in 15 years, Vikram, since you said that you had a sea change of thought processes, how you were and how you are today, why should a student go into gaming if at all a simple prompt can do the entire thing on an AI? And what makes it a career option to somebody who's sitting out here new? I sat here specifically because your panel was supposed to talk on augmented reality. This is very close to the profession that I am into, and this is something which is of subject matter to me. How do you see that augmented reality being transformed and superimposed on humans so that they can learn from it, they can use it, they can operate with it, which is called as digital twins, and using the digital twin as a foremost individualized, which means that you have to do a CT scan, which is a very specific for every person, use that CT scan, feed it into the digital twin, and operate using that digital twin as an overlay in agent-acted systems today, which are existent, and later on, the superintelligence of autonomous systems, which are going to be coming tomorrow. So where is your gaming industry headed? Where is augmented reality headed? Where is the augmented reality glasses headed? So these are the things. We don't want massive microscopes to be working with. If we have a spectacle which can give me, when asked or when thought of, a magnification when I'm doing microsurgery, why do I need a Zeiss or a platform which is quite big and bulky? So this is where I was sitting through and hoping that you would answer. And I'm not that I'm not really proud to see you sitting there on the panel. It is a very proud moment because you're tomorrow's Bharat's future. And it's very pleasing to see that if the thought processes go towards this direction, you may benefit something which humanity is concerned with.
Okay. First of all, it's nice to be called young again. I'm actually not as young as I look. Just for for the sake of your question, I'm 43, so I'm actually not as young as these two are. So it's nice to be called young again. Thank you so much. So I can actually answer your question with a little bit of technical expertise. I actually do have some experience with AR and VR. So there's 2 or 3 challenges specifically with augmented reality and VR or XR in general. The most critical one is practical usability. So in terms of practical usability, and when I say usability, it's not what the use case is or what the industry is, and I'll give you a specific example of that later. It's that as a lay person, you're asking me to purchase an additional device on top of devices that I already use at a fairly high cost. And you're asking me to learn to integrate and utilize in an efficient way an additional layer of information that I have to spend a lot of money and technical expertise on. And the end user is saying, why are you asking me to get a second device on top of a third device to use a layer for information I can already access? So that's challenge number 1. And this is not easy. This is a very, very difficult problem to solve. One area in one industry that has actually seen some sense of progress in this augmented reality space is actually mental health. Now, and I can send you some research information after this if you wish, that's not a problem. And it's actually quite extraordinary. What they've done is, for patients who've been through extreme mental health trauma, one of the most, a very efficient way they have found to address these patients' challenges and issues and how to treat them is they've actually used VR and AR devices to try and generate digitally created safe spaces for them to address their mental health challenges. Now, that's a very specific use case, but that's not something that can be transferred to a much more lay level. So, for example, you talked about augmented glasses, right? Like even my Instagram, I think my Instagram feed, like a lot of yours, has been exploding with Ray-Ban glass influencers for the last 6 months. Am I the only one who's been seeing them, right? I actually went and tried one of those glasses at an event. So my question is, Mike, I actually have a reverse question for you. Are you expecting these kind of augmented and mixed reality or extended reality interfaces to improve your life? Or do you think this is some sort of a new entertainment medium you're hoping for?
This is not entertainment. This is life. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is this thing is already happening. We are far behind. Point number 3 is if Bharat is not leveraged into coming into its existence today, we will always be catching up. 4th point is that operating at skills, the levels at which we are training the robots today with what is called as haptic systems. Haptic is sensory feedback, and then it is translated into motor movements of the robot, which also has what is called as a chip neuronal interface. So it's a hybrid chip neuronal wetware interface with computing, which is quantum related and quantum speeds. So these are the things which is happening. So why do you think your profession as such can't leverage this kind of a product which is coming through right now? Because the future is, if you had attended the last meeting, which was here, is billions of dollars.
I unfortunately was not here with the quantum.
So it is billions of dollars. Unless and until you come down to that, would you think your career is going to be hit with redundancies as every carrier is today, which is going to be affecting us also as surgeons when super intelligent autonomous systems are going to come through?
That's fair. So, I mean, you already answered the first question I was going to say. It's an exorbitant amount of cost to build the ecosystems and the technical skills, the design skills, the knowledge skills, and the practical usability interfaces to build these things. So I'll be honest. I mean, yes, I'm afraid. One of the reasons I decided to step away from salary to an independent job is that, okay, the speed at which AI and costs and hardware and everything is changing, and I'm still stuck doing a specific mindset. If I don't learn to adapt now, I'm not going to adapt in the future. So it's an adaptation thing. Second, adapting at an individual level is much, much easier. Adapting at a auditorium level is a little harder. Adapting at a state and a national level is very, 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 very hard. It takes generations. And I understand your concerns, but the one of the practical realities of working in India is one of the things, like for example, we were talking about earlier is the education system. We are asking an entire education system to basically make a generational shift in teaching, training, design, art, to adapt to these interfaces and be ready to do them if we enter the job market. That does
Yeah.
not exist yet.
See, Vikram, I don't agree, first of all, with your premise, which says that Bharat is behind what you said right now. It is, in fact, a little bit, insulting to Bharat, if I may say so. Bharat is equally capable of doing whatever it needs to do and has got the best problem minds in the world. The only thing is, if can we leverage that kind of people who are sitting out there as an audience to be interested in systems which are going to make a difference. So when you say it's a career choice, what happens if the system makes that career's choice redundant very quickly?
So I think I can speak on that a bit. I have been following AI and the development ever since like way before it became it became a mainstream thing. My brother is a AI scientist, and he's been a professor in Harvard, MIT, Boston. So I have been deeply passionate about this. And I think so the current models, let's say like the current model that we have, that the government of USA banned was Fable, which was like and basically there were some examples of games made by Fable, and what they were essentially were something that a person could do in 2 weeks, just copying code from the internet. And what I'm trying to get at is that LLM as a technology, yeah,
LLM is the basic thing.
yeah,
We are working today with agentic. Tomorrow it's going to be autonomous systems.
exactly.
Autonomous is super intelligence.
So the agentic systems that you're talking about, the core of them are still LLMs. They are trying to communicate to each other and trying to. It's still LLMs down the way, and the LLM technology that you're talking about, these were scientifically they were discovered back even before computers existed. So we haven't made much progress scientifically on that. We have engineered solutions to like bring these math equations, these statistical models, uh, in reality because of the compute that power that we have. But one of the core fundamental things that we have to understand about LLMs and agentic models is that these are backward looking technologies. These technologies need a lot of data that was created in the past to create some version or some variation of the same data that exists, right? And so we have to understand that. Let's talk about games, right? How many of like the audience plays games? Like I just want to. And so you guys might have like a favorite game, right? You might, and I think it's very important to understand that entertainment industry is one of the hardest industries to get into. It's very hard to make something which is. So imagine like I'm making a game and I'm asking the player to give me, let's say, 10 USD or 15 USD. And then I'm also asking the player to give me 6 or 7 hours of their life, right? And so nobody is going to give you that unless you deeply care about that time that you have gotten as a creator, right? And so there are certain use cases of AI that are very very useful, which we can talk about. But I think games as a career will be improving and developing regardless of AI. I think AI tools will have certain use cases which will make a lot of things easier. One of those things will be refactoring and just I think things which are more statistics based, right? So that's where I am at, and I'm in this industry where I've tried to have these models be used I've tried to use these models to create something out of them, and uh, I have not found any success. And I know when I say that, it means that I might not be looking at the future, but as I said, fundamentally, technically, what these models are statistics. They are just trying to guess the next word that they think the user wants, right? And 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 we have to realize and understand for what they are. There will be AI, there will be super intelligence, but I don't think that will happen. I don't think we have even scientifically or philosophically devised the right framework for that to exist right now. And that is coming from someone who has spent years wanting those things to be true as a fan of science fiction and philosophy and science. So yeah.
So I did want to slightly add one thing, because I think your question was also trying to ask from the aspect of the fact that VR and AR, like the facility, like all the technologies are existing, and how is it being utilized, right? And and I can also see that from the like answers that like Vikram was also giving, and the aspect, like the feeling that when we are trying to say that the education system change and the aspects, like we are okay, here's the best way to put it, like I think we are specifically also seeing it from a, as you said, microscope as well, like from the aspect of game development. And like my best answer would be that um, I would like to know more and get to know more about it, like is how I would put the phrasing there, right? And just thinking on the top of my head, when you said regarding robotics as well, the first thing that comes to mind 16 years, I think 15, 16 years back, was Boston Dynamics doing the stuff, and it is being showcased in India like recently, I think, for the past few years. That was ready and done 15, like easily 15, 20 years ago. And even from VR perspective, there are a lot of games that focus on virtual reality, and which are, you know, used in like multiple different directions and experiences. Like VR is extremely important with, like for example, Oculus is specifically focused on and was created through game development aspects. And I'm personally not able to say much about AR. So
I'll add a few. I'll just add a few things. I think India has all that a lot of new technology that's coming up that if we invest right, we'll be able to get ahead of a lot of competition globally. And I think another thing that I would just like to add on that AI point is that the games that these models have made, you can't call them games. They are tech demos. They are basically showcasing that they are basically making a piece of software where you can just walk around, maybe shoot, but that's not a game. And I think coming back to an older point that we were discussing, that you mentioned that game design is a very hard thing to teach, and games fundamentally rely on game design, not necessarily the art or the programming that much, but that is what everyone sees. That is what gets marketed, that hey, look at how beautiful this game looks. Hey, look what tech this game is using to like simulate the physics and make things look realistic. But fundamentally what games are pieces of design which craft agency. And so AI up until now has not been able to do it in a way which looks forward to the future, not at the past of what has already come.
Basically, I think what you're trying to say is AI doesn't understand what makes games fun, right?
So I mean, it can, like, if you ask it, it will tell you, and then if you ask it to then make a game about it, then it will. But I think one thing is we are anthropomorphizing. I don't know how to spell that word, but yes, we are doing that here, and also we have to understand that um, we have already figured out how to make games fun in a lot of ways. because we have those games, we have fun games to play, right? And AI can create variations of that. But
Yeah,
if you
but
want,
nothing fresh is
what?
no, it can't invent a new fun way to
Yeah,
play,
yeah, yeah,
make a game.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It can't invent new ways that agency can be crafted. So that's what's my experience, and obviously it's not everything, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you may not get the answers you're looking for from us. So, I mean, I believe our experiences may be different from yours. So, I would, like Aditya said, like to learn a little better what exactly your background and training has been in this space. So, if you're happy to have a chat after we're done listening, answering everybody else, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to? Yeah.
So I have one question. Actually, I have two questions. Both are quite different. So one particular is that gaming industry uh, has previously it was traditional, but nowadays there are new technologies are coming. So like AIML and the same way IoT also. So what are other technologies which are going to be integrated further in gaming industry?
So I think one of
I
them will
mean
be,
futuristic point of view.
yes, I think one of them will be handheld, like very powerful handheld PCs. I think that's something that the industry is moving towards, because people want the convenience of a smartphone, but they want to play their game on this. I think cloud gaming is also seeing a huge boom right now. So recently we have tried NVIDIA's GeForce experience, I think something like that, and so that has, you can play any game on any device, even if you don't have the right hardware for it, on a based on a subscription service, I think. So I think these will be the technologies which will democratize gaming for people who might not be able to afford very expensive PCs, right? So I think that will be something in the near future. We'll see a huge boom in that, like handheld gaming consoles, so Steam Deck, and there are a lot of the other ones, Odin, and then cloud gaming. Yeah.
And actually, this is one of the areas where AI actually is one of the few things that AI does well is scaling production and scaling technologies, right? So I have actually one or two very specific examples that I saw. One from someone like I follow online. He specializes in game marketing, and his general pipeline before he started understanding AIs and AI agents specifically was obviously he and his team of artists would get the brief from the client or the studio, the art director, and they would make a lot of marketing art, put it on the game store, play store, digital marketing, and everything. One of the experiments they did, and it's now become a normal part of their pipeline, is the agent takes the brief that they get from the art director or client. The core human team, the art team, makes about 5 to 10 pieces of artwork for marketing. And what the AI agent that they've built is it goes into the marketing pipeline and makes about 100 to 500 variations based on whatever their budget is. And this AI agent then automatically makes the decision to say, these specific images should be advertised in this region or country. These images should be advertised for this audience segment. These images should be advertised for that region. So this AI agent, based on the historical data for the type of advertising and game marketing they do, and other market forces that it can research by itself, makes the decision for them that would have taken them days and weeks of research and analysis to do. So this is one specific area where it's not just AI, but AI and agents specifically being used in a very, very critical, excellent, like production multiplier way. No human was lost in the job of this process. They just took a part of the job where all these artists would have to stop working, sit with analysts and designers and say, who are we marketing this for? What is this audience? What is this segment? Now this agent does it for them, right? And another really good example of this I have seen is in quality assurance. QA in games is a very, 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 very difficult process. It is a very time consuming, very labor intensive process. It is a very unpleasant job to do.
Right.
And now what AI agents have done, and many studios have already adopted this, is they basically tell an AI agent, do this specific test 1,000 times in 10,000 different ways. And you can do this for any condition permutation. So between this is the kind of thing will enable Indian game dev industry, and not just game dev. Hello? Okay, it's working again. Not just the game development industry, but any technical or software-based industry. If we can identify these specific part of pipelines where we can enable AI, it allows us to target and focus our energies and budgets on creative skills, design skills, storytelling skills, creating new IPs, creating Indian-centered IPs, right? For example, one of the things that Mridul was talking about earlier was building our own local stories using modern technologies, using stories from our history, our region, our culture, our languages, whatever you want to take from our homeland. It's critical to attracting not just a global audience, but getting a local audience to also understand, oh, we are capable of this. And one of the ways we can use AI in a positive way is to enable our energies and budgets, both emotional, physical, and financial, towards the creative side of elements and not just the technical and service side of elements. If we can figure out the right ways to enable these kind of technologies, I think we can be capable of producing some incredibly beautiful things. And I'm hoping we head in that direction. I mean, I'm trying to, so
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah,
Anyone
so
else?
apart from that, there is one second question that is related to compliance. Actually, the reason is what could be the government compliance related to gaming to regulate? The reason is there are two different industries. One is gambling, and another
RMG.
is gaming. But under the name of the gaming, many times gambling system,
It's okay,
gambling
we're all
thing is
adults. We
coming.
can call it gambling. It's all right.
Yeah. So in that, what is the scenario that a house always wins? So even in backend also, code is written in that manner that always they win. So that is the hindrance to actual gaming industry because it gives some sort of bias in cultural bias towards that. So what could be the compliance from government point of view? Not in general or overall.
Okay, this is a difficult question because my experience with the RMG or the gambling side of the industry is very, very limited. But generally, this is actually something I actually don't hold the government at fault. I actually hold the gaming industry at fault here a little bit more. One of the reasons for this is there was a very good opportunity here for the RMG side, the gambling side of the industry, to actually come together as an industry and say, look, we have an industry. It is clearly generating revenue. We have created jobs. We have an ecosystem. We have technologies. We have production pipelines and processes. There was a very good opportunity here for them to say, let's go talk to the government and let's build a policy framework. Let's build a legal framework. Let's build a regulatory framework. And they didn't do this.
Yeah.
And it cost them last year because the government said, okay, you clearly exploit every loophole to register in a foreign country and take revenue outside and leave very little here. And it cost them dearly because the government changed the plans last year, and now they're also thinking about applying retrospective taxes on them, right? So it's led to a lot of difficulty in the RMG side in the industry.
Yeah.
So yeah. For us to sit down and say the government should do this, the state government should do this, the central government should do this. The government can't chase after every single person there is.
Right.
If you have an industry that has organically grown up in India, you've had a bunch of people who said, we have the money, we are investing, we have industries, we are generating revenue, we're generating profits, we're generating taxes. Let's actually work with the government to scale this up. Let's actually turn into a fully large industry. And I think that was a very, very deep political opportunity that was lost. It's still not too late to change this, but I think they should.
Yeah, so my point is, apart from revenue as well as financial and policy point of view, the standard, industrial standard point of view, are there any some fair coding standards so that customers could have equal opportunity to win over? I mean, not gaming point of view. I'm talking about gambling actually.
Right, right.
That in gambling, while working on the backend code, we always come to know that that customer is going to win initial sometime, but after certain milestone, he is going to be lose surely. So after working in backend, we know certain part. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So there could be some internal standards
Yeah.
exactly, coding standards sort of.
So just to add on to what Vikram said, all of what he said has happened. But earlier this year, the government passed the and Regulation of Online Gaming Bill. So that effectively outlawed RMG. They cannot operate in the country anymore. They've challenged it in the Supreme Court and they've also lost the case. So it's done. It's dusted. It's they cannot. So the thing is like the government again felt that whatever you said, right? They know the odds. Literally, families were destroyed, right? So the government took action against it,
Yeah.
and it's in a way it's really good for the gaming industry because what these gambling firms, like you rightly pointed out, were doing was conflating uh, this with online gaming, right?
Yeah.
You have all of these apps out there. You could practically betting, but it was just classified as gaming. Now, since that the government has banned that and has established a right framework for online gaming, the other gaming firms that were originally uh, in the industry, right, making actual games like
Yeah. actual
Rockstar
game.
games and the games that these guys are working for,
Yeah.
they have a pathway and they have a clear stance of what's legal and what's not
Yes.
compared to before. So yeah, anyway, RMG is no longer a thing, so I don't think we need to be bothered about it anymore.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's all the time we have for today. Uh, just to wrap up, guys, I just want to ask each of you one simple question. What's the biggest myth about gaming in India?
I think if you love games, it's not like you. It's not like a. It's I don't know how to frame this for some reason. If you love games, uh, I don't know how to frame this. You go on.
I think what Mridul is trying to say is just because you're really good at playing a game and understanding how to play a game and you play it really, really well. And by the way, some of you, I've been playing Dota for the last 20 years. Some of you gamers might know what that is. I can play that game really well, but if I sat down and tried to make it, it would take me 10 years to figure out how to make a game that complex. Knowing how to be good at consuming your favorite form of culture, whether that's movies, films, writing, music, games, it doesn't matter, does not translate to, oh, because I understand this well, means I know how to make it well. The gap between consuming and making is huge. And the number of people who come into the games industry, yeah, I'm really good at playing and understanding games, I can make it also. No, it does not work like that. Nahi hota. It's a very, very common myth I see in every fresher interview, every student I talk to. And when they discover what the reality of making a game is, they're like, what the hell? Why are making games so hard? Yeah, like, I want to make something fun. It takes a lot of work to make something fun.
Oh, I can add one more thing. Games don't teach anything. Go play all the games and you'll learn. There's so many different variety of games that talk about so many different things in life, from emotional grief to hiking to fishing, or even like what do you call it? Oh, definitely. Um.
Games are very good teaching tools.
Oh,
Very, very good
definitely.
teaching.
Yeah. Um. Like this just reminded me of physics for some reason. Yeah, that's constantly in our heads all the time.
Thank you so much. We're here for a little bit before we have lunch and rush to the airport. Unfortunately, we have a catch a flight back. But thank you so much for inviting us, first of all, and thank you for the Gujarat government for inviting the three of us, and to Vignesh and the Outlook team for having us on this panel. I wish we had more time to answer more questions. The three of us can yap on about games all day. And I'd love to actually have a couple of questions with you after we're done with this, just so I have a better understanding of where you're coming from. But thank you from me, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we draw the curtains on these highly insightful sessions, one thing is abundantly clear: Gujarat is pacing towards monumental head. And this is a special thanks to our AVGC XR panelists. We extend our thanks to our moderator, Mr. Vignesh, Raghuram, Mr. Aditya Subramaniam, Mr. Vikram Khazanji, and Mr. Mridul Pancholi for showcasing how Gujarat can become India's next massive AVGC hub. Special thanks to our host and our venue partners, and special thanks to our audience. Please give yourself a round of applause for being here. Thank you.